beautiful freaks.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Vampire Love Forever panel here at Fan Expo with James and Juliet. My name is Lisa. I'm with Rue Morgue magazine. I'm the resident Buffyphile and vampire lover at the magazine. And I'm here to ask them a couple questions and then make sure you guys get an opportunity to ask lots of questions of your own. So thank you both for being here. You've both been at Fan Expo before, but I don't think we've ever had the pleasure of having you together. So feel free to prank each other under the table or whatever you guys like to do when you're alone. James, I want to start with you and say happy birthday week.
Thank you.
I know for some gentlemen 50 is, you know, a benchmark year, but when you've played someone who's centuries of years old, it's really not a big deal, right?
Yeah, it's only a number. You're as young as you feel. Actually.
Which, you sort of celebrated with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Was that the biggest birthday party you've ever had?
Yeah. You know, I got two teenagers, so my birthday is usually like, Dad, can you drive me too? So it was really nice to just hang out with fans and get presents. Presents are good. The cake is good. Yeah.
Did you get more than one cake?
No, but it had my picture all over it.
I think I've had that cake for my birthday too.
One quick thing, I was just asked to say, if anybody has empty seats near you, put your hands up, because they'll filter. There's a lot of people that want to try to still get in, so they'll fill in.
SRO,
So that would be great.
Standing room only.
So I want to go back in time, way back to the Buffy audition, because I understand that you busted out Shakespeare, which might have been unexpected. Why did you do that?
I was messing with the other actors that were auditioning for the role. It was psychological warfare. You know, a lot of those actors probably didn't care, but I had come from stage and I was known for doing Shakespeare pretty well. And I was just like, I'm a better actor than all of you. I'm gonna do Macbeth right in this corner. And they probably just thought I was insane. You know, like looking back on it, I can't like.
Was that before you came in?
Yeah. But it like psyched me up, you know, because Macbeth is a bloody role, and I'd just done it in Seattle before I came, and I was probably reminding myself, I was probably nervous and reminding myself I could actually act. Yeah.
Most of the people in the room now know that you were not originally destined to be a regular starring character on the show. You were written in for one episode. How much do you think the chemistry between you and Juliet's Drusilla character had to do with the fact that you got to come back?
It was the only reason I got it. I was Juliet's boy toy. Juliet was the point, and I was set up. I think the idea was that Angel and Buffy sleep with each other. Angel goes evil, kills me, and takes up with you. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I think no one ever told me, but I kind of smelled that was the original plan. And so I was supposed to die in 5 to 10 episodes. But instead, they just put me in a wheelchair. But yeah, it was really the fact that I think that you and I. The thing was that we both come from stage and we both care a lot about what we do, and I think that we kind of hooked in almost instinctually at the audition for that, and then it just rolled on to the point where my girlfriend at the time, do you remember Liz?
Yeah.
She was way jealous of you and I. We went over to Juliet's.
You told me that later. I never knew she would come over all the time.
Because there's one point we came over to your house to watch one of the episodes, and at one point, either you leaned over to me or I leaned over to you just to say like, oh, that moment worked, or whatever the thing was, and she kind of like noticed that, and then told me later that like the next day that she had a crush on David Boreanaz. Trying to get me back. And so all the stuff early on with David, I actually hated him. That's why that stuff worked so well, because it wasn't acting, and it took me a long time to know that I just got set up by my ex-girlfriend. And in fact, David was being really nice to me the whole time. So, fool.
Juliet, what do you remember about your first acting scene with James? Was it audition or was it on set? And were you impressed with his Shakespeare? Or?
I missed the Shakespeare portion of that, but that experience. But basically, right from the get-go, I had been cast, and they paired me with the final choices, 5 final choices for Spike. So I guess you were out there doing Macbeth.
Yeah.
and then the minute James came in, really, we just had. First, you came in with a Southern accent.
Yeah.
I remember that,
Yeah.
and then because your agent had told you Southern, and then Joss was like, "Well, can you do English?" And then boom, you switched, and you did, and then. Right away, we just sort of took the scene, and the scene that James was reading was the Anointed one, that first scene in the School Heart episode, and all this stuff started happening, and we really had that moment where we were, instead of talking to the Anointed One, we sort of leaned toward each other, our heads rested, and all of a sudden we remembered that we were talking to him when we turned out, and we were like, afterwards, when you got cast, we were like, that was really cool. Let's put that in, let's find where did we do that. And it not only made it into the first episode, but they ended up using it as the promo, where they basically would say, "Evil has a few new faces," and it was us resting and then turning out to camera. We were like, wow. Because it really came out of just what they call in acting, like moment to moment, like literally working off each other like a tennis match, or a dance. And it really came out of the moment. It wasn't anything that either of us conceived in our head.
Yeah, that's what I remember about working with you. That was the things I felt like we were both playing. In stage they say it's called a play for a reason. No one is going to pay money to watch you work. You have to play. And I thought that you understood that. I mean, a lot of actors in Hollywood, they're very serious, and they're I don't know, they're not having fun, or they complain or whatever. But we're both very serious about it, but at the same time we're serious about having fun. And it's all in the moment. Yeah, and it becomes like a tennis match. Yeah.
And then there was also like our whole second season, we would get together basically and rehearse and come in really prepared, and come in with blocking ideas, which basically means where you're moving in the scenes. And they generally would be like, great. And we'd come in, and it was so that by the time we were on set, I mean, we also figured if you're playing characters that have been together and been familiar for 200 years, we couldn't be shy with each other.
It interests me, it's funny you say that, it interests me that so few writers and directors have gone and presented vampire couples and vampire lovers. We have humans that fall in love with vampires, and we have vampires that sire people, and they have relationships, but there aren't that many great vampire lover couples, so you guys get to be at the top of that list pretty easily, even if you weren't great. But you really, no one else has really figured out that they should try and unseat you from that. When it works, it's something that's pretty special within that genre that is already so sort of overdone. But this is something quite unique on your show, and in all the real vampire shows, we don't really see that.
Yeah, I think that's Joss's mind working on more than one level at one time. Because I mean, his idea was that he wanted the Sid and Nancy of the vampire set. He wanted punk rockers, and that was another thing that we both knew about punk. And we were both subversive artists, So they actually hired a bunch of actual subversives to play these 2 punk rockers. But at the same time, well, yeah, they were going to. I was supposed to be Sid Vicious, and in my mind, I was like, "You don't want Sid Vicious." Okay, guys, this is Sid Vicious. Girls like me because I've got a nice figure and a nice face. I was like, you want Johnny Rotten, man. You want Johnny Lydon. I'm not going to be Sid Vicious. That'd be terrible.
I was Sid.
Yeah.
I was. When Joss said to me, Nancy, I never thought I was Nancy. I actually borrowed from Sid.
I was Nancy. I had the blonde hair. And I was like, something every day.
Well, speaking of role reversals, you were bad guy, good guy, the different faces of the character. Which side of the Spike did you like playing? And I don't know if it had much to do with how many hours you had to spend in the makeup chair, but...
Oh, no, the secret was it only took 20 minutes. We told the boss that it took 40.
Wait, mine took 2 hours. Yeah, 20 minutes, really?
Well, yeah, for the vamp face, yeah. Todd was like, let's take 20 minutes, but we're going to tell them it takes 40, because if we tell them it takes
Yeah,
20,
45
they'll push us for 15. And I can't do it in 15, so it's 40 minutes. So we would do it in 20 and just have a nice conversation. It's like Houdini. Houdini would get out of the trap, and he'd read a newspaper, tell everyone went crazy, and it came out. What was the question?
Has your character changed from being a pretty bad guy to, a nice...
Well, as I said to a lot of people in line, I really felt like there was a big part of my character that was only on screen if Juliet was on the set. And that was the punk rock, the drug addict,
Badass.
the subversive badass. Yeah. And I enjoyed playing that the best. The rest of it hurt. When you play when I was playing the other stuff, I was always trying to feel guilty about something or insecure about something, and all of that acting process just sucks. I mean, when you're there for like 12 to 20 hours trying to feel bad about yourself, that just is not so much fun as just walking around going, I'll kill you all. So yeah, being a villain is a lot easier. When you're a villain, you just lurk in the corner, and you just wait for the hero to come by huffing and puffing and feeling guilty about himself, and then pop him in the thing, and then you go home. And it's
Well, we'll get to you being the hero in a bit, but Juliet, other than Sid Vicious, who were you drawing on, do you think, for Drusilla? Were there other sort of female vampire archetypes that you looked at?
I didn't so much look at the archetypes of vampires, but I do remember the first when I was hired and after James was hired, I had a creative meeting with Joss, and we sat down and basically explained the whole vampire lore of the show, and I had seen some of the episodes, so we talked about that, and he said what he wanted from Drew, and I remember being really intimidated by the list, because everything he said was sort of contrary. For instance, he said, she's very delicate, but she's powerful. She's very childlike, but she's sensual. She's very sweet, but she's diabolical. So I left the meeting, and like everything he said, I left and I went, oh my God. Because I'd actually never read for the part. I met with Joss, and he'd seen my work in Ed Wood, and I did a movie with Whoopi Goldberg where I played an English character. And so we'd have this creative meeting, and actually when James came in for those auditions, all of a sudden I was really nervous, because I was like, maybe he's going to hate it, and he's going to fire me, but he didn't, luckily. But I left that, and I remember thinking, oh gosh, how am I going to do that? And then I started working on the character, and I always work with a lot of different things. One of the things I like to do is work with visual references, so I pull stuff for each character. I work with music for each character. So I started putting all the ingredients together, and slowly this kind of wild, crazy lady came out of me.
You went from being the guy that was supposed to die after one show to, I think it's okay to worry, you don't have to worry about spoilers with you people, right? So, I think you've watched the show. So, you really were the hero at the end.
I would disagree with that. I think I was the guinea pig at the end. I remember Josh telling me that you got to be a hero at the end. And I was like, well, I didn't know that I was sacrificing anything. I didn't know that I was going to die. I just wanted the pretty necklace, really. And so I was kind of like the guinea pig hero.
But you have that great line, I just want to see how it ends.
Yeah, okay. That was true.
But I mean, that's the whole reason why people, keep watching TV and listening to stories, is because they want to know how it ends. And you come back in comic book form, but not with the two of you as part of the character, sort of another thing.
Except the one I wrote.
And you both got involved in the creative. So can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with the comic books and what plans that you may have going forward?
I co-wrote 2 issues of the Angel comic book for IDW. Really fun. I came up with the storyline and was very involved working with Franco on the art, and also designed the covers with a number of artists, the alternate covers, and did some of the additional internal art and did all that. And then there is plans, but we'll see. I've been working on a number of films, and so the schedule is a bit tricky, so we're going to see if we can work out a 5-issue arc that would have Drew. Really interesting storyline, so we'll see if we get to do that for Dark Horse.
Right on. And me, when I came to town, I had been an artistic director of a theater company up in Seattle. And when you're an artistic director, you have a lot of power. You get to decide what stories to be told, who's going to tell it, what paint you're going to put on the walls, everything you have control over. And when we come down to Hollywood, you have no control over anything. And I was happy about that, but I also kind of missed being able to pull all the levers. And so I mistakenly thought that if I wrote something, I would have control. Not realizing that in Hollywood, writers have no control either. So I wrote a comic book, and it was my idea to write the most twisted romance between Spike and Drew that I could think of, and try to drive them as far apart as I could think in the very first panel, and then find a way to get them back together in a romance. And handed it over to Dark Horse, and didn't think that I needed to worry about who was going to draw the comic book, because the comic book was drawn with Spike and Drew looking like this, like that. And it looked cool and everything, but see, the way that the machine works in a romance is that all the guys have to want to be the guy and have to want the girl, and all the women readers have to want to be the girl and want the guy. That's just how the internal combustion of a romance fires its pistons, and they put sand in those pistons, and no one wants to look like this, you know. So I thought, you know, it was a good comic book, but it would have been a lot better if they would have done what I wrote. And then I was talking with one of the Dark Horse people backstage at Comic-Con this year, and they asked me if I had any other ideas, and I said I actually had an idea that I told Joss, because Joss was there for a little while. There was some plans to do a Spike TV movie, but it didn't pan out. Sorry. But it was my idea that Spike. I'm talking to Joss, right? And he goes, you know, do you want to do a TV movie? I'm like, cool, man. Do you have any ideas? What do you got? And he goes, I don't really have any ideas, but I have a line from a movie. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you got? And he goes, it's Aragorn in the last Lord of the Rings. When he goes, I have no hope for myself, but I have hope for other people or whatever. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, okay, that's really depressing, Joss. That's really self-important. I don't understand where you're going with that at all. And I'm like, well, that's cool. That's good. I have an idea. And he's like, okay, what is it? And I was like, okay, I always wanted Spike to proactively decide what he wants and go out and get it. We've seen him react to things, or blindly stumble into things, or lose things, but I want him to plan to achieve something and then do it. But the fact that we've never seen him do this before, if he achieves something large, it's going to be cheesy. So it should be something very small that he gets. So in my idea, Spike is he's poor, he's pretty much homeless, his clothes are falling apart because he's come to a point in his life where he can't mug anybody or kill anybody for food, shelter, or clothing, because he's got a soul, but he also is damned if he's going to get a job. At all. So he's like walking a dark alley and someone gets in trouble, tries to save them, but his shoes are losing the soles and they're flapping around, and so he has trouble with the fight. You know, he almost gets his butt kicked because his clothes are all tattered, right? And he passes this shop that has this nice pair of punk boots, you know, steel tip. He just really wants those boots, but he's got no money at all. And he's walking away from the shop, and he remembers that shop, about 100 years ago, he had pulled a robbery. And they stored the money underneath the floorboards of that shop. And so he's trying to figure, through the whole story, he's trying to figure out, how do I get that money without hurting anybody, without lying to anybody, being a good person? How do I get that money? And also in the story, there's a big bad comes to town, and he, you know, does research, and the big bad doesn't look that big, it doesn't look that bad, and he's like, oh, I'll take that one, yeah, I'm gonna be the hero there. And he also meets a woman and falls in love and can't tell her that he's a vampire. Doesn't have the courage to tell her who he really is. So he And so that can play out in comedic ways, like, why can't you come out with me this morning, or whatever. You just, that can be funny.
You're a terrible brunch date.
Yeah, exactly.
No brunch in our future.
And so when he finally corners the creature, and then when he corners the creature unfurls to a 20-foot monster. And he ends up running away down the alley going, I need a nerd, I need a librarian, I need a witch. The woman sees this happen, sees the fight, realizes that he's a vampire, and dumps him. So he loses the fight, he loses the girl, but he goes, you know what, I'm just going to go into that shop and I'm just going to tell them that they have money underneath their floor. It's an old Chinese couple. And I'm just going to tell them, maybe they'll give me a reward. Maybe good deeds have a reward. I don't know, man. I'm going to go. So he goes and tells them, and the Chinese lady goes, oh, thank you very much. Now get out, and just kicks him out of the thing. And he's just walking. This is the very end. He walks down. He's walking down the alley, and the husband comes after him with the boots and says, "Look, I noticed you like these boots. We thank you for that. Thank you." So he loses the fight. He loses the girl, but he gets a new pair of boots without hurting anybody and without lying. So now nobody's going to buy the comic book because you already heard the story. Something else.
Juliet, have you ever gone through that much for a pair of shoes?
I don't think so.
You talked about Josh, and he has had obviously a tremendous success, because of all the hard work that you guys did. Now he's rich and famous. And do you talk to him about working in his movies? Like, you could do Shakespeare and Much Ado About Nothing. You could be action heroes. Do you guys talk to him?
No.
Yeah, not about that. But yeah, definitely see Joss and hang out with him. But the last time I saw Joss was actually when he was just starting The Avengers, and he was really excited about it, starting production on it, and he was saying that it was really amazing timing because he'd been having a show that was not successful at that moment, and he got this unbelievable opportunity, and he was really excited about doing it.
I don't talk to Joss at all.
Okay. You have said in interviews, though, that you auditioned for True Blood.
Yeah.
What happened?
It was too short. I auditioned for that German character, Dieter, and Walls said, that dude is awesome, he's fabulous, but he'd never stack up in a fight against Skarsgård. And I was like, when I heard that from my manager, I was like, oh, I should have told him I make my money stacking up against tall guys in fights. I did David Boreanaz, then I went over to Smallville, and then Captain John was taller than me, so I'm used to mixing it up with tall guys, but okay. And then the dude who played him got a bad review, and I was like,
Would either of you play other vampire characters other than Spike and Drew?
Yeah, it depends on the character. An interesting role is an interesting role. And also, I would think it would have to, for me, I'd like it to be very, very different than Drew, because I don't like doing the same thing. And nothing else really is like Drew.
yeah, me too. Same answer. For a long time I was like, I can't do any more vampires. I don't want to get pigeonholed into vampires. But at this point, Juliet and I have played other roles. So you can go back, and at this point, I go back and do vampire shows.
The thing about Buffy is it really, to me, happened at a time when genre material started to get taken more seriously. And people have always, there have always been nerds who studied Star Trek and,
Me.
I mean, that's not new, but people really started investigating what Buffy was really saying. That it wasn't just a story about monsters, that there was a lot more going on. And I think that's its legacy more than, say, inspiring any of the other sort of teen vampire stuff that's come in its wake. So, thinking back on it, what are you both the proudest about in terms of your contribution to the show and its contribution to society, really?
Well, I think it's great in terms of there being a female character who's really strong and empowered in the center of the show is a wonderful thing. And in terms of, it's hard for me to be objective about it because of being in, I just loved the opportunity. I loved getting to play that role. I had so much fun, and we had so much fun doing it that, you know, that was a complete joy for me.
Yeah, I agree too. You know, I remember I was in the back of a car going to one of these conventions with a really well-known actor from the Star Wars movies, who will remain unnamed, and he's telling me why Buffy's a stupid show. Why a girl that size could never defend herself like that. And I remember going to him, dude, I fight the stunt doubles for Buffy, and they're triple black belts, and they can kill both of us without breaking a sweat. It's all about training, man. And, you know, because he's from a different generation, and, you know, he wasn't getting it. But it was that idea that it was a story about a female who could solve her own problems on her own. And I think that was, at the time, kind of revolutionary. I mean, now it's a little more common, but at that time it was very new. And the other thing that I think, the reason that Buffy kind of will continue to be important, actually, not to get too self-involved about it, is that it's about realizing that the world is a messed up place and still caring about it and not giving up. And how do you not give up on yourself? How do you not give up on the world when you realize that it's horrible? And in that way, it's kind of like a Catcher in the Rye, or kind of like a Hamlet. I'm not comparing it to the writing, I'm just saying the theme is kind of the same thing.
I know there are many people here with questions about Buffy. I want to wrap with just a question for each of you about other more current projects. Juliet, what can you tell us about where the road runs?
It's a movie I just shot in Africa, and I'm a female lead. I play an English missionary, very different sounding than Drew, who runs an orphanage in West Africa. And then I also just finished the Bronx Bull, which was formerly called Raging Bull 2. And I play a Viennese movie starlet, wild party girl that has an affair with Jake LaMotta, who's played by William Forsythe. So those two.
Nice.
She's moved on.
William Forsythe.
And tell us about Metal Provolone.
Yeah, it's a French television series based on the comic book that gave rise to Heavy Metal, which was a really wonderfully twisted animated feature in the 80s. A bunch of short stories with a lot of sex and a lot of dark ending. So I play the episode that I'm in is about a teenage girl that wakes up in a bomb shelter, and her next door neighbor that I play is down there with her, and the guy says, World War III has started, the missiles have been fired, I didn't have time to talk to you about this, so I just knocked you down and dragged you in. And so she's got to figure out and there's no radio, there's no way to communicate with the outside world, there's no way I'm going to let her open the door, and she's got to figure out if I'm lying.
When will we see that?
Sooner rather than later, I would think. Yeah.
Someone's Googling it right now.
Yeah, Google it up. I'm not really sure what the exact thing is, but we were selling it at Comic-Con, so I think it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
So, I know there are many people here with questions. I will try to get to as many as possible. Please ask one question only. And if you could stand up and ask your question so everyone can hear it, that would be great. Thanks. I'll start with that gentleman there with his hand up, right there.
Juliet, one of my favorite sort of moments was when you first arrived on Angel, sweeping into the room, collecting Darla's body. What was it like when Joss came to tell you about that opportunity to come back, and were you trying to keep it a secret from all the fans on the internet?
I was excited when Joss said he wanted to bring Drew back and sort of mapped out some of the storyline, because I was excited for the first 6 episodes of being weak and dying and then getting strength on Buffy. It was really cool to then spread my wings a little in LA with Darla. And so I was excited about that. I don't remember at the moment like having to not say anything. Somehow, I don't remember having to keep it hush-hush, but we probably did for a while, but I actually don't really about that hard.
At the front here.
Hi guys. I've asked you both this individually, so I'm curious what your answer will be now that you're together. Which one of you thinks you have the better English accent?
It's a tie.
I asked
I
that.
don't remember being asked that either.
Definitely
You
Juliet.
both said each other. You said you did and you said you didn't.
Oh, well then there you go. Yeah, definitely Juliet. Yeah. You're wrong. You're wrong. It's you. You got to put it right.
We can fight in an English accent.
There's a hand there, guy with the hat. Yes.
Yeah, this is for Juliet mainly. I know there have been a lot of, I'd say, decent fight sequences in Buffy. Apart from where your character took down Kendra, did you wish that Drusilla had more fight sequences?
I would have loved to. I was a dancer, so I actually really loved doing a lot of the fight choreography and stuff. And when James and I got a few times to do stuff, he's done so much stage stuff and sword stuff and combat stuff. It really is very choreographed and by the numbers, and that stuff is really fun. They were great in terms of the stunt doubles with me. There was a girl named Michelle and then another gal that doubled me who were built like me, which was great because often they're just like and so it was great because she did double me really well and try to mirror some. Drew had a very specific body language, but I would have really loved to do it. The only thing was in that particular fight sequence, it was funny because we were shooting the confessional scene where 1882, where David's in the confession with Drew, and it's like the first time that you've ever seen Drew back in the day before she was a vampire, back to back with the killing Kendra scene. And so Todd, the makeup artist, said, well, we have a little bit of a problem in that we can't have the Drew manicure, which was the red with white tips, for 1882, but we need it really clearly when you're slicing her neck. It will show. So his solution was to put on these press-on nails, the V press-on nails. So we were shooting, and I was in orange heels, and literally as Bianca and I are doing the fight, my nails kept going, and flipping off. So we finally get the nails to stay. Todd gets it all done. Then we were doing this whole part where Bianca's supposed to kick me right about here. And we rehearsed it, and we rehearsed it, and rehearsed it every time, perfect. I don't know what happened, but I think the minute they yelled action, she got really excited. So the next thing I know, I see this huge combat boot, I'm like, it's not gonna hit the mark. And I see it come up toward my head, and boom, she kicks me in the head. And I'm such a girly girl that I've never had been in a fight, so I was like, oh, I really do see stars. Flexible, and meanwhile I'm thinking, my whole head's going and I'm thinking, I don't want to ruin the take, right? So I'm like, I got to keep going. So the next part of it is I grab her by the throat and I back her into the wall before I do the deed. And I remember, I think it's the take that's actually used in the episode. I grabbed her by the neck and I made eye contact with her. And I was looking at her. I was like, Bianca, don't fucking do that again. And I'm looking at her and I back her into the wall and she did calm down. And that's the take. Thank you.
Both in Angel and in Buffy, how did you find the difference between the darkness in Angel versus in Buffy, and which one did you prefer?
I've never been asked anything remotely like that, so I'm really considering. What I will say is that I think that Buffy had a lighter theme, which I talked about before. How do you care about a messed up world? I think Angel had a darker theme, which was about regret. How do you deal with things that you've done in the past that you wish you hadn't done? How do you rectify yourself and the world in the face of that? And that's really a theme for middle-aged people. I'm just like, Joss, who is your target audience here? But Buffy was handled, it was a lighter theme handled with a lot of darker tones. And then Angel was a darker theme handled with a lot more humor. I mean, a lot more silliness. And I think that they were balancing that out as they went. So my experience as an actor going through that, which is very subjective. I think Julia was really right. When you're acting, you're not thinking about the larger theme of the show or anything. You're really just thinking about your own objective. So it was a darker ride for me to film Buffy, really. And because a lot of Angel was really silly, even though the theme was really very serious. Does that answer your question?
For me, I would say, for me, the character was the same, even though I was doing different things, but the through line of the character was the same. So it really was a very similar experience for me working on both shows. I mean, it felt like one big family because so many of us worked together on both shows, and so much of the crew had worked on Buffy, and then the DP had worked on Buffy, and then it was the camera op on Buffy, and then the DP on Angel. So it really just sort of felt, even though Angel shot primarily or was housed at Paramount, and we were in Santa Monica for Buffy, it felt like sort of, to me, one extension of itself. Even though the shows themselves had a slightly different timbre, our characters, at least my character from my viewpoint, was sort of, it was the same ingredients needed to be there.
There
Yeah.
was a little tiny hand over there. Oh, we can't see you. You want to stand on the chair? Oh, he's shy. Okay. We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you, okay? Yes.
Hi there.
Hello.
One of my go-to karaoke songs is Rest in Peace. What kind of music or bands are you into lately, and do either of you have a go-to karaoke song?
I have a band, which is my karaoke machine. And so it's called Ghost of the Robot. You can go on iTunes. You can go on Amazon. We just released an album called Murphy's Law, which debuted at 106 on iTunes. I think it's a really good album, and you can get it for $9.99, which is what it's worth. And we're currently, I'm going to go back up north, and we're working on the next album. And so, no, I don't think I've ever done karaoke. I used to have like a microphone and a speaker in my apartment in Santa Monica when I was shooting Buffy, and I used to bother my neighbors because I was like warming up for club stuff that I was singing, and they used to call it my karaoke machine. But I kept saying, no, I wrote those songs. It's not karaoke, man. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Oh, I've never done karaoke. I sing also, but I've actually never done karaoke. But I do vocal exercises, so at the time of Buffy, I was probably driving my neighbors nuts doing vocal exercises every day.
There's a girl in the aisle there, yes.
So since you guys are here, and Julie Benz is here, are you guys going to bring it up?
I can't keep up with Julie Benz.
At the very back, yes.
What was it like playing Captain Jack Marcus's wife in Portugal?
Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one. It was freaking fabulous, man. Like I said before, they hired a subversive to play a punk rocker on Buffy, and I think that Torchwood was a very deeply subversive show. Subversion is not specifically about making people angry, by the way. Subversion is about divesting people of lies that they get taught before they know that they're being taught lies. And these lies include, you can buy cool, you can buy Christmas, violence works, old people are boring, and gay people can't be heroes. And we were subverting that fifth lie. They were all nervous that I would be nervous about kissing the captain, you know? And I came and I bit him. And he's like, you just bit me, dude. Like, I haven't seen you in 300 years. What do you expect? Also, my fiance directed the kiss. Yeah, she was on a bar stool 5 feet away. We would kiss and we'd look over and how was that? She'd be like, oh, that was good.
Well, you have to create it. I mean, it is your job, so you have to find a way to do that. And You do find a way to do it. It's much easier when you click in with somebody and you can really go, and that makes it a joy. It's definitely much more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, with Juliet it was effortless. Sometimes you really have to go home, do homework, and really look for that thing that you can love in the other person and really be attracted to. And you don't instinctually have that, but you have to find it because it's your job. Yeah.
Hi. So, in all 7 seasons, whether you're in the scene or not, what would you consider your favorite scene
Favorite scene?
in all 7 seasons of Buffy?
You know you're going to get this one at every Q&A.
Favorite scene, usually a favorite episode or stuff like that. I've actually never been asked.
So we're all original. There are a lot of good scenes.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, that's great. What's your favorite scene?
Foxy Girl at the very end.
I thought that a lot of the body was my favorite scene. I could see that, because I wasn't in it, I could watch it as a complete audience member. And I wasn't just going, oh, I look good in that shot. Oh. And so I really could just appreciate it as a human being, and I was really moved by it. So probably not.
That was
I remember when there was at some point we were up for some a bunch of awards, and I kept telling Joss, look, we're not going to win any of these because you called it Buffy the Vampire. If you wanted awards, you should have called it something else. But let's go to the frickin' dinner, all right? So we were up for some really good award, right? And we were up against West Wing. And we were all at the table, all the writers and me and other people were all at the table, and the guy with the envelope, he goes, and the winner is, and we all in chorus, perfectly synchronized, at our table go, West Wing! And it was West Wing.
That's good acting.
Yeah.
But it did win, Todd McIntosh won Emmys for the makeup on Buffy, which is amazing.
Okay, we're really running out of time. One question, no couple questions.
Oh, seriously.
Oh, there's a fight between the vamps on Buffy, True Blood, and Vampire Diaries.
I think we'd have to give it to us.
Yeah. But first we demoralize them with good dialogue.
All right, I'm going to go back to the fella over there with the ball cap. You're up.
I liked it both ways. Change me who I am. What do you want?
I was more comfortable with him when he was in Vamp. When he wasn't in Vamp, he was all guilty about everything. I never understood that.
Thank you all for your good questions.
Right on.